I have a secret I want to share that will make you wealthy. Are you getting tired of feeling like you're not getting anywhere in life? Maybe you've even made a vision board, cutting and pasting pictures of all the things you want. It might include a happy couple standing in front of a new home, a boat in the driveway, smiling children playing with a dog, all framed by a white picket fence. There's nothing wrong with this image. In fact, it's lovely, and it's something most people dream of: wealth, security, a good paying job. So why is it that after creating vision boards and looking at them every day for months, even years, you're still not seeing results? Here's the simple truth: you're sending out the wrong signal. You're constantly telling the universe that you want these things. You want financial success. You want life to finally pay off after all your hard work and sacrifice. You deserve it. So why haven't you received it? Here's the fact you need to understand: the universe is neutral. It doesn't care whether you succeed or fail. That's why you must train your thoughts to work for you, not against you. It all starts in your mind. Stop wanting. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but stay with me. This is where it gets powerful. Here's the secret. You must feel as if you already have what you desire. Why? Because the universe is like a giant mirror. It reflects the energy you project. If you stood in front of a magical mirror and showed it, truly showed it, that you are already wealthy, that's exactly what it would reflect back to you. Now let me share a story to show how this works. Meet Greg. He's 35, stuck in a factory job with miserable coworkers and rotating shifts. The only happy people at work seem to be Tom the janitor and the office staff. Greg hates his job and thinks about quitting, even though he can't afford to. Bills are piling up, and his daughter is 2 years away from university. His only work friend is Carol, but all she talks about is her grandkids. Not exactly exciting. After work, Greg usually calls his buddies for beer, and they sit around talking about how life sucks and how nobody ever gets ahead. Greg has a garage where he tinkers with his car, but he barely has time for it. Life feels like one long dead-end cycle. Sound familiar? One day, while stopping for gas, Greg runs into Dan, an old high school friend. Dan's driving a new BMW, his beautiful wife in the passenger seat. Hanging from the rearview mirror is a parking pass for Procter & Gamble. Greg is stunned. Back in high school, they lived just a few houses apart. They used to sneak off into the woods with stolen cigarettes and drinks, talking about girls and life. Then Dan moved away, and they lost touch. Now here they are, decades later, living two very different lives. Dan explains that after high school, he too worked at a factory, just like Greg. It was hot, underpaid, and filled with grumpy coworkers. But Dan noticed something others ignored. The pharmaceutical labels on the bottles caught his attention. Curious, Dan began researching the medications he saw at work: diabetes treatments, heart meds, blood pressure drugs. This sparked something inside him. He imagined himself in a lab coat, working in a pharmacy, maybe even creating life-saving drugs. Dan had always been good at science and math, but had never seriously considered such a path. That night, something changed. He decided to pursue a degree in chemistry. He went to university, earned a graduate degree, and eventually became a pharmacist. Now he works as a research scientist, and that's how he met his wife Tiffany, who's also a pharmacist. So what made the difference? Same background, same neighborhood, same obstacles. But Dan saw opportunity where Greg saw limitation. Dan envisioned a better life, and felt it as if it were already his. He saw himself succeeding, embraced challenges, and surrounded himself with driven people. Greg, on the other hand, remained trapped in a cycle of negativity, surrounded by people who constantly complained about life. But something clicked when Greg reconnected with Dan. They met for coffee a week later. Greg admitted he envied Dan's drive and success, but didn't think he had it in him anymore. He was too beaten down. Dan offered Greg a challenge. Go back to work with a different mindset. Look for opportunity. It's there, you just have to be open to it. And when you're done your shift, don't invite the guys over for beer. Go to the local college library and just sit for a while. Watch. Greg didn't fully understand, but decided to give it a try. After his next shift, Greg walked into a college library for the first time. He wandered around awkwardly, grabbed a magazine, and sat at a study table. He watched students hauling backpacks, working in study groups, laughing and learning. Nobody was complaining, they had goals, and they were pushing toward them. It hit him, these people weren't trapped like he felt. They saw effort as a path forward, not something to suffer through. Greg began looking at his job differently. He started noticing the energy around him. During lunch one day, he overheard Tom the janitor mention possible layoffs. Someone else chimed in, saying they might move to a new line at the automotive plant next door. Greg nearly fell into his old thinking, just another dead-end job. But then he stopped himself. No, he thought, maybe there's something here for me. Just then, Tom stood up to grab a snack. Before the bag of chips dropped, Tom clutched his chest and collapsed. Panic filled the break room. People shouted for help. A co-worker asked if anyone knew CPR. Greg stepped forward. He hadn't done CPR since he was a teenage lifeguard, but instinct took over. He performed chest compressions for several minutes until Tom's color returned, and he opened his eyes. When the paramedics arrived, they asked who saved him. Everyone pointed to Greg. "You did an amazing job," said one of the medics. "You saved his life. You're in the wrong line of work, my friend." Greg was praised by his co-workers and given the rest of the day off with pay. At home, his wife and kids beamed with pride. Something awakened in Greg that day. He realized how good it felt to help someone, to be needed. It reminded him of his lifeguarding days, when people looked up to him, when he mattered. One evening, instead of meeting the guys for beer, Greg walked over to the local ambulance station. He knocked on the door, and the same medic who had responded to Tom opened it. Greg smiled and said, "I'm going to be a paramedic. How do I become one?" Greg had no idea those few minutes of CPR would become the defining moment of his life. But life often works that way. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder politely, it shakes you when you're not expecting it. That day, something inside Greg shifted. He no longer saw himself as a man trapped by circumstance. He saw himself as someone capable, someone who could make a real difference. For the first time in years, Greg felt purpose. Over the next few weeks, he visited the ambulance station often, asking questions, reading brochures, and learning everything he could about becoming a paramedic. It wouldn't be easy. He'd need to return to school, study human anatomy, emergency procedures, and ride along with real medics. But Greg, now inspired, found that same drive Dan once described to him. The fire had been lit. He enrolled in night classes while still working at the factory. It wasn't glamorous. He'd work a full shift, then head straight to the community college for classes. He stopped drinking with the guys, not because he thought he was better than them, but because he knew he had to choose a different path if he wanted a different life. He began studying with some of the students he had once watched from the corner of the library. And you know what? He fit in. Greg started to believe something new, that life wasn't a game of luck. It was a mirror. It reflected not what you wanted, but what you believed about yourself deep down. And for the first time, Greg saw himself as someone worth more than just punching a clock. In just 2 years, Greg passed his paramedic program with honors. He applied to the very same ambulance service that responded the day he saved Tom. And when he put on that uniform for the first time, he stood in front of the mirror at home and whispered, "This is who I am now." But deep down, he had known it all along. The moral of the story: so what can we learn from Greg's journey? The lesson is both simple and profound. You are not a product of your circumstances. You are a product of your perspective. It's not enough to want a better life. You have to see yourself living it. You have to feel it in your bones and believe it in your soul. Wanting puts you in a state of lack, but embodying, truly becoming the version of yourself who already has it, activates something far more powerful than desire. It activates alignment. When Greg shifted his mindset from victim to visionary, the world responded. His circumstances didn't instantly change, his job didn't magically get better, and bills didn't disappear overnight. But once Greg saw himself as more than a factory worker, opportunities began to appear where there were none before. His path didn't start with a miracle. It started with a decision, and here's something vital to understand: the universe responds to your frequency, not your wishes. Just like Dan, who imagined himself in a lab coat long before he wore one, and Greg, who reconnected with his lifeguard instincts to become a lifesaver once again, your future self is waiting for you to step into the role. Vision boards are beautiful, but unless your mind is aligned with the reality they depict, they are just paper and glue. True manifestation doesn't happen on a poster. It happens in the unseen, in the way you carry yourself when no one's looking. It happens in your thoughts, in your feelings, and in the energy you radiate. That's what the universe reflects back, not your hopes but your identity. So the next time you catch yourself wanting something, wealth, love, purpose, pause. Don't ask, how can I get it? Ask, what would the version of me who already has it be doing, thinking, feeling right now? Start there. Greg didn't become a paramedic overnight. Dan didn't become a scientist overnight. But they both began their journey the moment they decided to change the story they were telling themselves. And that is the secret I promised you. It's not magic, but it is miraculous. And it starts when you stop wishing for a better life and start living like it's already yours. Final thought, your turn. This isn't just Greg's story, it's yours too. Right now you are standing at the edge of two possibilities: staying where you are, or stepping into who you were always meant to be. The only difference between those paths is your belief. That's it. So what are you going to believe? That you're stuck, that you're too late, that you're not good enough, or that your best days are still ahead of you, and the universe is simply waiting for you to show up as your highest self? You don't need permission to change your life. You don't need luck. You just need a reason, and maybe this story is that reason. If you've made it this far, take it as a sign. A new chapter begins now. So stand in front of your mirror tonight, and see the person you're becoming, not the one who's trying, but the one who's already there. Say it out loud if you must. Speak it into existence. Because when you truly believe it, the universe has no choice but to reflect it back. If this message resonated with you, please like, share and subscribe. Let's inspire each other to become the person we were always meant to be. You're not lost, you're becoming. And the best is yet to come.